Hi, I'm Nicole Ainsworth with Food, Soul, Mind, Body, where the focus is on nourishing the all of you. My hope in bringing you this video today is to inspire and motivate those of you who've been thinking about cooking, you want to cook, but maybe you just don't know where to begin, or maybe the idea is just a little too overwhelming. For those of you who dread the thought of cooking, I'm hoping to make that thought a little bit more palatable to you. And for those of you who are already out there cooking and loving it, I hope you'll pick up some tips and ideas that you can apply in your own kitchen. So today we are not going to be cooking. Instead, we're going to be backing way up to the place you face when you get ready to cook, your pantry, or your cabinet if you don't have a pantry. And why the pantry? Because this is really where it all begins. You may have heard the French culinary term mise en place, or everything in its place. If you've watched cooking shows or you've seen a chef at work, you've likely noticed that before they even start cooking, all of their ingredients are already chopped, pre-measured, and in their individual little bowls right there, so that when the chef begins to cook, all they have to do is reach and grab when they're ready for each ingredient. Well, we're going to take that same principle today and apply it to our pantry. I'm going to call it Mise en Place du Garde-Manger, or everything in its place, setting up your pantry. There are all kinds of organizing systems out there, but today I'm going to show you how to do this on the cheap. I'm talking dollar store and a little bit of brain power. Now, I will share with you some fancier alternatives, but again, the idea here is to keep this simple and doable. In fact, we're not even going to worry about the nutritional value of the items in your pantry today. We'll save that for another day. Today, we're just going to get organized. Now, for those of you who know me, or if you've read my bio on my website, foodsoulmindbody.com, you know that when it comes to nutrition, I don't apply a one-size-fits-all. The same goes here. Today, I'm going to share with you some of the ideas or the approaches that I take when organizing my pantry. I'll share with you some alternatives, and you may decide to do what I do. You may decide to consider the alternatives. You may decide to put your own spin on it, and that's okay. The whole idea again here today is to get organized, because when your pantry is organized, you're going to feel so much more prepared to cook. The first thing I'm going to do is completely empty the pantry. And yes, I did say completely. As I empty the pantry, I'm going to place like items together. For example, these canned legumes, my condiments, my spices, and so on. If it's been a while since you've been through your pantry, you might find some pleasant surprises, like that jar of pickles that you picked up at the fall harvest last year. Or you might find some items that it's just time to get rid of, like this jar of Mise, for example, from 1997. I think I can get rid of that. You may find some items that just don't belong in a food pantry. For example, scissors. So now I have thrown out those items that are outdated or I know I'm never going to eat. I've taken the items that don't belong in a food pantry and I've put them in their proper place. And I've separated my items into categories that make sense to me. So let's go ahead and have a look. What foods will do best in a container or a bin. These are foods that tend to be messy in the pantry, such as flours or sugars, items that tend to get buried or end up in a pile. These all do great in bins. So let's look specifically now. Here's some guidelines that I like to follow. Flour, for example, I like to put this in a large bin, also my sugar. It's easy to get my measuring cups in and out of, and so I'll take those and I'll put them in large bins. Items like these oats, rice, quinoa, I'll put these in pourable bins. They oftentimes come in packages that have a ziplock but many times those Ziplocs don't seal, or it's frustrating trying to get them sealed properly. And if you don't, you're going to end up with moisture inside the bag, which you definitely don't want. Now, sometimes you get lucky and you get an item like this couscous that has a nice sealable lid on it, and it is already in a pourable container, so I don't need to do anything with that. My condiments, I'll just set those directly on the shelf, as I will my jarred foods too. Items such as nuts and snacks, I'm going to put those in bins, but I'm definitely going to keep them in separate bins. If you have a member in your household that has a nut allergy, you already are well aware of the importance of keeping these items separate. If you don't have anyone in your household that has a nut allergy, this is still very important. For example, if you have a guest come to your home that happens to have a nut allergy, you do not want to serve them a snack that's been sharing a bin with nuts. So keep those in separate bins. Items like the teas and coffees, I actually have a drawer that's right in front of me here that is empty, that will work well for putting these teas in. But if you don't, these can just go straight on your shelf. They stack nicely, they're in boxes. If you do buy specialty teas that happen to be in little bags and all, you're going to want to put those in bins. And if you've got a number of different flavors or an assortment of teas, you'll want to put those in separate Ziploc bags inside of that bin. You don't want those unique flavors of each of the teas to start mixing inside the bin. All right, baking supplies, these little items like food extracts, food colorings, you're going to definitely want to put those in bins. And as well, just like with the specialty teas, you're going to want to probably take and put those in individual Ziplocs inside of the bin. Items like my pastas, they come in boxes, they stack easily. Dry pasta is not messy, so I'll leave those in the boxes. And my canned vegetables and fruits, they stack nice and easily in the pantry. So again, I don't need to do anything with them. I'll just set them directly on the shelf. It's time to go get the containers. But I told you that I was doing this on the cheap, and I hate waste. So before I head to the store, I'm going to look around my home and see if there are any containers that I can use for this purpose. So I did find these small containers here that will work quite well for items that come in smaller volumes. So I can take that off my list. And also, before I head to the store, I'm going to snap pictures of all of the items that I need bins for. So my small spices, my large spices, my flour, sugar, etc. So that when I get to the store, I can reference that and I know how many containers I need and which kind of containers that I need. So with that said, I am going to head off to the store and I will see you in a bit. Hi, so I've returned from the store. I have removed the packaging labels from the items that I purchased. I've washed and thoroughly dried them. Now I do stress the word thoroughly because the last thing you want, for example, when you're getting ready to bake that special birthday cake, is to open your sugar container only to find your sugar in one big hard lump because there was moisture in the container when you put that airtight lid on top. Now, as an aside here, I said that I was going to the dollar store. If the dollar store is not your thing, or you're going for a more aesthetic look in your pantry, there are plenty of stores such as Target, Bed Bath & Beyond, the Container Store, go figure, where you can find a wide array of nice matching containers. If budget is not an issue for you at all, then you might want to go to Sur La Table or Williams-Sonoma, where they have a large selection of lovely containers that are sure to not only do the job, but also impress your guests when you just happen to open your pantry doors in front of them. Now I'm going to want to arrange the foods with the containers that I'm planning to use for them. So I have brought out just a few examples to share with you. I had mentioned that the baking supplies, these little small items that tend to end up in piles or buried somewhere, would go nicely in a container. And I've also taken and put the items like the food colorings and flavorings into small Ziplocs so that they're easy to just grab, and probably more importantly, if they happen to leak, they don't end up all over all the other ingredients that are sharing the bin. I also mentioned that I would be looking for containers where I can pour my oats or pour my quinoa from. So these little containers are going to work great for that, with a lid to pop, and I can pour. So I'm going to put my quinoa and my oats in these containers. I mentioned that I was going to look for a large bin for my flour. I found one. I'll use it similar for sugar and some of my other flours as well. I did mention that nuts should go in their own container. I found a nice bin that holds the different kinds of nuts that I and my family enjoy. So they're here. Again, all contained together by themselves. And then before I left for the store, I shared with you that I had found these small containers for items that come in smaller volumes. So items like this farro will fit nicely in there. Hemp seed, the small package of hemp seed fits nicely in there. And so I'm going to use the smaller containers again for these items that come in smaller volumes. All right, we have a few more items to talk about before we head out to go get our containers. First, let's talk spices. If you're lucky enough to have a large drawer in your home that you can use for the purpose of storing your spices, that is ideal. The spices lay nice and neatly, label up, very easy to find. All you have to do is pull that drawer open and there you go, you have what you're looking for. Also, if you happen to be someone who purchases the same brand of spice regularly, you'll find that the containers are uniform, and that makes it very easy to store your spices as well. I unfortunately do not have the luxury of having a large drawer that is not being used or that I can purpose for storing my spices. And as you can see, I purchase spices from all different companies, so the packaging is not uniform. Therefore, I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to pull out my old Lazy Susan that has been with me since my first apartment out of college, and I'm going to use this for my medium spices. So these fit very nicely on this Lazy Susan, and so I'm going to go ahead and organize them actually in alphabetical order. So I've got mustard, ground mustard, I've got nutmeg, let's move the ginger over here in front of the mustard, and so on. Placing the spices in alphabetical order on the Lazy Susan will make it so much easier to find what I need when I need it. Now I also have the small spices and the large spices to find homes for. I'm going to put them each in their own separate bins. So small in their own bin, large in their own bin, with the labels up, and again in alphabetical order. Again, just makes it that much easier to find what I'm looking for. And then finally, these odd-shaped spices that tend to be in large, again, odd-shaped containers, those will just go directly on the shelf right next to the Lazy Susan where my other spices are found. Now there's two more groups of items that I just want to touch on. One of them I call overflow, and that is the items that don't fit into the container that you intended for them. So for example, flour. Your entire bag of flour may not fit entirely in the bin that you purchased for it. You may have a little bit left in the bag, and that's okay. We're going to take and designate a space in our pantry specifically for those overflow items. The same goes for duplicate items. If you happen to have an extra bottle of olive oil or an extra box of baking soda, you don't want to take up your prime real estate in your pantry with these items that you're not going to need immediately. So we're going to take those duplicate items, place them together with the overflow items in a specific place of our pantry that doesn't take up prime real estate, but is where we know where to find those items when we need them. So we are going to label our containers before we put the food in them, and I'm sure you can guess why. Salt and sugar look a lot alike, and I speak from experience. Just ask my family how great those cinnamon rolls were that had a cup of salt rather than a cup of sugar in them. Although I blame my sister Laura for that. I was baking the cinnamon rolls at her home, and Laura, you did a great job of putting your items in their various bins, but you forgot to label them. And we are going to label our containers before we put the food in them today. I picked up these labels at Staples for about $6. Of course, there's a whole variety of labels out there. Pick what works best for you. You can create your labels on your computer and print them out, or you can just use a good old-fashioned Sharpie and write the name of the food on the label and then place the label on the container. before you place the food in the container. So let's get started making our labels. So all of our labels are on our containers. The food has been placed in the containers, so let's take it home. I'm going to start at the top. Well, let's take a look at what I've done. All right, we started at the top and we've got it all arranged up here. What I've done on the top shelf way up there is I put my jarred items, and the next shelf down on the top I put my canned items. I don't use a lot of canned and jarred foods, so I'm not frequently having to get up there and grab them. I wouldn't want to put anything that I have to access frequently up on the top like that. Fortunately, I have someone in my home that is 6'5", so if I do need to retrieve something when he's home, I don't have to worry about it. On the other hand, if he's not home, I've got my step stool and I've got these handy tongs. And again, if I put jars and cans up there that I can't reach, these tongs come in very handy for grabbing a jar or a can and pulling it close enough for me to actually reach and pull it down. Now, we talked about overflow and duplicate items. That top shelf is where I put my overflow and my duplicate items. So you may have seen I had a jar of extra bottle of olive oil, I had some extra flour, some items like that. They're all up there in my overflow and duplicate section on the very, very top shelf. Now here, down below, I put the items that I access most frequently. So I do a lot of cooking. I cook a lot with spices. And so my spices, I've got quite a few of them, and so I needed to think of the best way for me to easily access them. That Lazy Susan is easy to spin around and see everything that's on there. All I need to do, if I want to get in there, is grab these items, move them right here, and now I've got access to everything on my Lazy Susan here. And again, my spices are all in alphabetical order, both on the Lazy Susan and in the bins, so I can easily find what I'm looking for. Now I also place the small baking supplies in a couple of these bins as well. I don't bake as frequently as I cook, so I put those baking supplies down below. So I'm going to go ahead and put these back. I did mention that along the side there, I put the odd-shaped and a little bit larger spice containers, so I know exactly where those are at. And then over here I have my condiments. I put the condiments that I use most frequently in the front, and those that I very seldom use, I put toward the back. I also put some of the baking supplies that I seldom use in the very back there. Down below on this next shelf, these are really all of the accompaniments to the main vegetable and protein of dinner. In some cases they are the protein, as in quinoa or hemp. However, I've also put my pastas and my couscous and rices there as well. The pastas stacked very neatly. The rices and couscous and the other items that I put in some of those portable containers, they're very easily retrieved here. It doesn't take a lot to move one or two of those to get to what I'm looking for in the back. And again, they're neatly labeled so that I can see what I'm looking for. Breakfast cereals, I put those easy to reach right here in the front. And then I lined the side here with my vinegars and oils. These are really tall containers, so I've got a little bit of extra space on the second shelf here. And it's easy to see what I've got in the back. I put the tallest ones in the back and the shorter ones toward the front. Down on the very bottom, this is where I put all of my big bins of the different types of flours that I use and other items that I put in large bins. And the reason for that is I don't want to be down here digging around looking for items that I use frequently that are really small. I did put a few items that I don't use as frequently that are in smaller containers in the back there. But they do kind of fit in that same category: xanthan gum, gluten, amaranth, etc. I don't use those items as often, but I know they're back there if I need to get to them, and all I need to do is pull out these larger bins that are here in the front. I also put my pourable containers of some of the other grain items down there. Flaxseed, for example, is there. Hemp powder is down there. And then this is also where I put my nuts and my snacks. When I open my pantry, I don't want all my snacks staring me in the face and tempting me. So items are down there on the bottom. I have one bag of items that are the sugary items that when you have children in the house, every once in a while, you've just got to have something sweet for them. So I do put those in a plastic sealable bag within a bin, and it's tucked in the very back there, a little more challenging to get to. Well, it looks like I have achieved Mise en Place du Garde-Manger. My pantry is in order. Everything's in its place. So one last point to make. I recommend keeping a list or using a list app. There are many of them out there, and that can be a topic for another time. I'm trying AnyList right now. I haven't used it long enough to give it my full recommendation. So certainly if you've got an app that you're keeping a list on, use that. You can also use the basic template that I have available via the downloadable link below the video here. So feel free to use that as well. But my recommendation is to keep that list. Either if it's a hard copy list, keep it inside your pantry, perhaps tape it on the inside of the pantry door, or again, use a list app to keep track of when you run out of items, or of course when you are looking at recipes and you are know that you don't have an ingredient that you're going to need to prepare that recipe. So I hope that this has inspired those of you who've been thinking about cooking, and that you are more likely to fire up the stove or the oven and get to cooking. And for those of you who dread cooking, I hope that you are dreading it a little less, if not a lot less at this point. And for those of you who bake and cook all the time, again, I hope that you have picked up at least a tip or two that you can apply in your own kitchen. So I thank you for watching today. Please, if you enjoyed the video, if you found something valuable out of it, please do like it, please comment, leave your comments below and your feedback below. I would love if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, clicking the subscribe button below, and certainly come visit me at www.foodsoulmindbody.com. Until next time, thank you.